Welcome to Harry Cole Saves the West, the show where American grit meets British backbone. Friends, let's not sugarcoat it. The West has crossed a line. Britain is leading the charge, rewarding terrorism by formally recognising a Palestinian state. It's given the murderous Hamas its biggest political win in years. Yes, those scumbags we watch rape, torture and murder. Those barbarians who burned families alive, slaughtered children and caged and starved their hostages. Yes, them. They have been given a seat at the global table. And the timing? Not an accident. Just one day before Jewish New Year, one of the holiest days in their calendar, Hamas celebrates. Israel laments. And Jewish voices that should be roaring in anger on this show tonight, were silenced. Trapped not by fear, but the obligations of their faith. How very convenient for the British government. This is not diplomacy, it's betrayal. Keir Starmer has chosen terrorists over victims. Macron of France cheers, Carney of Canada claps, while the West takes the knee to the butchers. So what leverage do we have left? What message do we send to terrorists who rape, torture and murder? And what are the consequences of this treachery? Here to make sense of it all is author and journalist Jake Wallis-Simons and Amer Zahr, comedian and long-term Palestinian-American activist. Jake, let's start with you. Tell me straight, have we just sold out the remaining hostages?
I think we have. There's no two ways about it. I mean, Keir Starmer can claim for all he likes that this is not a reward for Hamas, but you look at Hamas, they're celebrating. They're congratulating Keir Starmer for this move. For them, Christmas has come early, although they don't believe in Christmas, but you know what I mean. It's everything they would have wanted. And, you know, crucially, this recognition did not place any demands on Hamas or the Palestinians to do anything. It didn't require Hamas to release the hostages. It didn't require Hamas to lay down its arms. And let's not forget how this war began in the first place. You know, to listen to Keir Starmer and the UN and all the other diplomats, you'd have thought that Israel just started massacring Palestinians without cause, and there isn't another combatant in this fight. We both know, and all the audience knows as well, the viewers know at home, how this started was with October the 7th, leaving Israel no choice but to obliterate Hamas and try to get its hostages back. Hamas is not obliterated. The hostages are still there, and Keir Starmer is leading the charge to give them a recognition of a state.
Amer, can I ask you, what incentive possibly does Hamas have now to release the remaining hostages? They've got what they want, haven't they?
Well, it's hard to have this conversation because the truth is the PLO, or the Palestinian Authority, or the Palestinians that actually are the ones negotiating with the countries like Britain and France and Australia for recognition, are not Hamas. They are Fatah. They are the ones who are in power in Ramallah. In fact, in many ways, it's their point of view that this recognition with this group of Palestinians, the ones that lead the PA and lead the PLO, is a way to make sure that Palestinian self-determination and power stays with them. So it's the UK and France and Australia, when they are granting the recognition, they're granting it to a party that actually opposes Hamas. So it's important to understand the basics of Palestinian politics when you're discussing this, which so far the discourse is not doing that.
Well, let's get into that, because is it your view then that there cannot be a recognised Palestine functioning state with a role for Hamas then?
Well, that's up to Palestinians, but we already know that the majority of Palestinians don't vote for Hamas. They vote for Fatah and other parties, but that's not really the point. The point is Palestinians... No, it's not. Palestinian self-determination is not up to the West. It's not up to Israel. We have a right of self-determination just like anybody else in the world. And that's what these recognitions say, that Palestinians have a right of self-determination. And it's important that we recognize that our self-determination is not conditional upon anything. It's not conditional upon anyone's comfort. It's because we are human beings and we are a people. And that's what the world has discovered. I'm sorry that a lot of people don't like it, that the world has seen the truth of Israeli occupation and apartheid and genocide, which started way before October 7th. I'm sorry that people don't like that. I'm sorry that people don't understand that what happened on October 7th was what happened with Nat Turner in the 1830s in America. It's a product of a terrible situation and apartheid and genocide that's been going on for forever. And so what the world is saying now, or actually most of the world already recognizes Palestine, but what the major countries of Europe are saying now is that we understand that Palestinian self-determination is a fact. It's not something conditional upon anything else. Why are we the only people in the world that have to behave for our rights? Well, guess what? When people don't have their rights, they don't behave. So it's important to treat people like human beings.
I think the murder of 1,700 people is a little bit more than not behaving. Jake, you're shaking your head there.
Yeah, I mean, that sounded very much like an apology for October the 7th from where I'm sitting. October the 7th was not a response to Israeli occupation because Gaza was not occupied since 2005. Israel withdrew unilaterally and gave the keys back to the Palestinians. Let's look at some basic history. You talk about the Palestinian appetite for Hamas or otherwise. The last time there was an election in the Palestinian territories in the early 2000s, guess what? Hamas won. After that, the world did not allow Hamas to take its place as the ruling body of Palestine, quite rightly. Then there was a civil war in Gaza, and Hamas kicked out the Palestinian Authority, which had been governing it before then, and took over. And look, almost 20 years later, Hamas had turned it into a terrorist enclave that then rewarded Israeli withdrawal from that territory with rockets, with the massacres, mutilations, rapes and kidnaps of October the 7th, and with continual bombing and belligerence. So I just don't recognize this idea that somehow the Palestinians can be free to determine their own future when they elect Hamas, and Hamas then does October the 7th just a few short years later. The fact is that nobody deserves statehood and self-determination. According to the Montevideo Convention, there are 4 criteria for statehood. Every other state in the world has passed those criteria before being recognized as a state. Palestine is the only one that does not pass any of those 4 criteria for recognition. It is still being recognized in advance of that as a protest, or rather as a stick with which to beat Israel as it tries to defend itself against the murderous killers of October the 7th. This is upside down. This is upside down politics. This is a topsy-turvy morality, and it's a crying shame that Keir Starmer is playing such a leading role in this atrocity.
Amer, what did you say to that?
So a couple lies there. First of all, the criteria for international recognition is whether other states recognize you. That's clear. You don't have to be other states. I didn't interrupt you with your lies, so just let me finish. All that matters matters under international law, and I'm a lawyer and a legal and a law professor, is that other states recognize you.
Then you shouldn't accuse people of lying on television.
That's all that matters. Number 2 is Gaza, of course, has been occupied since 1967. Yes, the Israelis physically withdrew their people and their settlements in 2005. However, they still controlled every border, all the imports, all the exports, the water, the bandwidth, the electricity. Why do you think they were able to turn off the water the next day and turn off the electricity and brag about it right after October 7th? Because they control that stuff. Palestinians who lived in Gaza were still living with 2G on their phones while the settlement next door is living on 5G. Why? Because Israel controls all of that. The Palestinians who live in the West Bank live with 3G. Why? Because Israel controls all of that. Jake knows all of this, I think, but these are the lines that we've been hearing from pro-Israel people to sanitize what Israel has done since 1948 and since 1967 especially. Occupation is ugly. I get it. I wouldn't want to try to defend it either. It is very ugly and it's very violent. We see settlers committing pogroms on Palestinian villages every day. I go to Palestine all the time. There are literally roads that are only for settlers and sometimes open for Palestinians if they want to use it. Otherwise, a 15-minute drive turns into 2 hours for Palestinians. We have a name for that. It's called Jim Crow. It's called apartheid. It's been going on for forever. Now the whole world sees it, and I understand supporters of Israel are getting really uneasy with it, that everyone's questioning from all parts of the spectrum. But it's quite clear. We live in America, and we seem to be more concerned, our political leaders seem to be more concerned with Israel than we are in America. Flint still doesn't have clean water. We don't have health care. People die because they're poor, and we're funding Israel. Jake, the game is up. The jig is up for Israel and their supporters, and I understand that it's very frustrating.
Jake, you'll come back to that. Some allegations there you want to pick up?
Yeah, it's quite odd and odd experience to have a lawyer look me in the eye on live television and falsely accuse me of lying. That would suggest that you're not too au fait with the libel laws in this country, at least. But either way, you criticise me for defending Israel when you seem quite happy to defend Hamas's actions on October the 7th, or at least to explain them away by some Israeli evil. If Gaza wanted 3G rather than 2G, or even 4G or 5G, quite simple. When Israel pulled out and gave them the businesses, gave them the keys to the Strip, they could have simply developed it in a peaceful way, in a way that makes economic sense, looks after their citizens, provided welfare, provided all the infrastructure of the state. Then you would have open borders, peace between Israel and the Palestinians in Gaza, and it would be a lovely place that you and I could go together and have coffee by the beach, these days. Unfortunately, they chose the path of terror, Hamas took billions of aid dollars and used it not to care for its citizens, but to build the infrastructure of terror, hundreds of miles of terror tunnels under Gaza, in which not a single civilian is allowed. All the civilians in Gaza could, by the way, fit in those tunnels during a bombardment and be safe, but they're not allowed in there because they're only used to attack Israel and to hold hostages. Hamas turned the place into a terror playground and then used it to launch an attempted genocide on Israel on October the 7th. You can't blame Israel for that.
Amer, just broadening it out slightly on the practicalities of how this is actually going to work. Jake does have a point though on the defined territory of the state, the permanent population, the capacity to enter diplomatic relations, and a functioning government. You know, leaving aside Gaza, in the West Bank, I don't think you can argue that there are any of those things really.
Well, that's not true. In the West Bank, you have the Palestinian Authority. But let's also understand, when Israel declared statehood in May of 1948, after they ethnically cleansed 850,000 Palestinians, including my parents, we are real people. This did actually happen to us. They didn't have any borders at that time. They hadn't had elections yet. They said they were going to write a constitution within 6 months, and it's been 77 years, and they still haven't written a constitution. So these things are actually not prerequisites for declaring a state and for having other countries recognize you. A declaration of a state and then a recognition of that by other countries is a recognition of aspirations. It's a recognition of reality. There's a lot of states in the world that haven't declared their borders. Israel has never declared their borders. Israel tries to keep expanding its borders. What are Israel's borders today? I'm sure Jake couldn't tell me because Israel has not declared their borders. In fact, Palestinians draw the whole of historic Palestine when we talk about Palestine, and Israelis draw the same thing because they see the West Bank and Gaza as part of their land as well. So we don't have to talk about, we are setting double standards. We are trying to put things on Palestinians which have never been put on other people. You don't have to declare borders. You don't have to declare a government. It is a way, you don't have to say that, you know, this is our system of government. You don't even have to have a constitution.
Then what functioning
Palestinians do have a constitution and the Israelis don't.
Then what is it? Then how is it a functioning state? Is it other than an aspiration? Is an aspiration enough, or is this, you know?
Well, yes, of course.
If tomorrow statehood was granted, how would it work?
Well, first of all, I would urge you to go visit Palestine and Ramallah, and you would see that there are many institutions of a state that you might expect to see. You know, different ministries, officials, all these things exist. Now, they're not recognized by the international community because the powers of the international community have waited until Israel signed off on it. Now, that regime is over, right? Now we are in the regime of people recognizing Palestine independently, and it's freaking the Israelis out. They don't know what to do. But I urge you, Harry, please go to Ramallah. You will see that there are institutions set up. There's ministries of education, which I have visited and I have talked to. There's a ministry of state. There's a foreign ministry. All these things exist because since 1993, the idea of Oslo was supposed to be a 5-year agreement, and then we get a state 5 years later. So all of these things were set up. So the truth is, the Palestinians, we have everything to create a state, but we don't have a state yet. We're ready.
Jake,
the truth is, Israel and America and Europe has been stopping it the whole time.
Okay,
now
Jake,
that's changing.
You're freaking out, is the accusation there?
No, I don't feel like I'm freaking out. I've been to Ramallah many times, and you're right, it does have the mechanisms of a state because those were the agreements under the Oslo Accords, that was supposed to be the beginnings of a state. The Oslo Accords, unfortunately, were derailed by the Second Intifada, which involved 140 suicide bombs on Israeli cities, turning the place into a butcher's shop. That's what prevented the Palestinians from having a state. They once again rejected a state in 2000 at Camp David. President Clinton said only last year that the Palestinians walked away from a state. He couldn't believe it. And he said that you can't complain 25 years later when you've rejected a state that the opportunities are no longer there. In 2008, Ehud Olmert also offered them 100% of their demands, a state including both the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, the capital in East Jerusalem, Israeli withdrawal not just from the West Bank and Gaza, but also from the old city. And Mahmoud Abbas didn't take that opportunity. As the phrase goes, the Palestinians never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. Why is that? It's because what they want is for a state instead of Israel, not alongside Israel. And the truth remains that if the Palestinians were to lay down their weapons and renounce terror, you know, Mahmoud Abbas, he's now serving the 21st year of his 4-year term, by the way, corrupt and brutal regime that he runs there that pays reward money to anybody convicted of terror. The fact remains, if the Palestinians were to lay down their arms, there would be peace tomorrow. If the Israelis were to lay down their arms, October the 7th would look like a cakewalk.
Is that true, Amer? Can a Palestinian state sit aside Israel?
Harry, this is not complicated. In 1993, the Oslo Accords were signed.
Come on, answer the question. Can a Palestinian state sit beside the state of Israel, or as Jake said, it would lead to violence?
No, that's what we agreed. We agreed to 1967 borders in 1993. But this is what happened. Jake likes to start. Jake and other pro-Israel supporters, they like to always change where they start history. The truth is, September 1993, Palestinians and Israelis signed the peace accords. We all saw it on the White House lawn. Yitzhak Rabin and Yasser Arafat shook hands. We Palestinians knew, the whole world knew, that was a better deal for Israel than it was for us. It let Israel keep building settlements in Area C and other places. It didn't really give, but it was a step forward. How did we react? We started to build the institutions to a state. How did Israeli society react? They killed their leader that dared to shake hands with us. In 1995, November, before the Second Intifada, Yitzhak Rabin was assassinated by one of his own. That's how that society reacted to making peace with us. They killed their leader.
And the point on the Intifada, though? Jake's point on the Intifada is valid. Surely.
I'm sorry?
Jake's point on the Intifada, it was greeted with violence. On both sides.
No, but this is the point. Is you keep starting history at different times, right? The Yitzhak Rabin was assassinated before everything fell apart in that period. That's the truth. Yitzhak Rabin was killed by his own people for daring to shake hands with us, and that is what led to a breakdown of a lot of other things in the region. Historians agree on that. Israeli historians, Palestinian historians, they agree on that. You can't just start history whenever you want to. And look, I understand you want to make your points, but it's not working anymore. People are not buying it anymore. They've actually gone and done their research, and they realize that we Palestinians are telling the truth.
Jake, final point from each of you. Jake, do you see anything in the timing of this announcement? The fact is that many Jewish critics of this recognition are right now celebrating their new year and unable to address TV cameras like our own.
It is reprehensible. You know, Keir Starmer has, frankly, aligned British foreign policy with Hamas. The recognition that he has given the Palestinians, again, I'm not against the Palestinian state, by the way, I should say that, but the way in which it's been done has been celebrated by Hamas with good reason, because it places no demands upon Hamas and only emboldens them in their war against Israel, in their determination to keep the hostages. And the fact that it's been done on the eve of Rosh Hashanah, one of the holiest days of the Jewish New Year, shows a contempt for Jewish people that would never be shown to Muslims or any other minority group in this country. Keir Starmer had the gall to release a video wishing Jews a peaceful new year and a happy new year today. Well, I would like to say to him, you know, you could stick your happy new year wishes where your recognition is currently. This is a bad idea. It's a betrayal, not just of Jews, but of the West as well. Final
thought, Amer, would you be comfortable? Could you live with a Palestinian state that involved Hamas in some capacity?
Well, first of all, it's really rich to talk about holidays, as Palestinians have gone through 2 Ramadans and 2 Christmases with bombs being dropped on their heads and being slaughtered every day in Gaza. Palestinian Christians trying to find refuge in the Holy Family Church in Gaza are being bombarded every day by Israelis. So it's pretty rich to talk about religious holidays when Palestinians have been living under this every day. I would not, I'll tell you right now, I'll be honest, if I was in Palestine and voting in a Palestinian government, and maybe I will be one day, I wouldn't vote for Hamas. I don't agree with that vision of a state. So they wouldn't be the party that I would choose. And I'm sure a lot of other Palestinians wouldn't. The Palestinians who are in power right now in Ramallah are not Hamas. Those are the people that the UK and France and Australia are talking to. So all of these red herrings are just a way to try to explain why we don't deserve the same rights that everybody else does. And the jig is up.
Amer, Jake, thank you very much. Our next guest is Joe Concha, Fox News contributor and author. Joe, welcome. Heated debate, as we've seen there. Let's talk about the politics of this, if we can. Donald Trump's been very clear repeatedly, including doubling down today from the White House, that America does not want this to happen. They didn't turn up to the debate at the UN today. What's this going to do to the Western Bloc, the alliance of like-minded nations, with such a split in it?
Well, that's the thing. Split is exactly the word that you use here as far as what's going on near me in New York, as far as the United Nations General Assembly. This is going to be a very interesting next couple of days. Trump has many bilateral meetings scheduled with different leaders. So perhaps the narrative that we're talking about now will be far different by the time if we decide to get together and do this again on Friday, perhaps we'll hear a completely different narrative.
There's a growing feeling in France and Britain especially that it's politicians kowtowing to a growing Muslim vote that has led to weak politicians who are seeing their electoral alliances crumble. Is there any sympathy from the White House in this? So far, Donald Trump has slightly held back in personally really criticising. He went after Macron hard, but he's stopped short of criticising Starmer. Do you think we'll see some fireworks at the UN?
If Donald Trump is consistent with the person he's been over the last 10 years since jumping into politics, probably. Yes, he'll probably save it for his speech when he has its biggest audience instead of in some gaggle with reporters somewhere. So, yeah, I would, if I'm a betting man, I would expect fireworks and then some in New York City.
And realistically, Joe, look, without America's backing, you know, this is not going to happen, is it? Is there any sign that this could be used as a negotiating chip or a bargaining tool by the Americans? And without the hostages being released, is Donald Trump even going to engage on any matter in this conflict?
That's always been the bottom line. Release the hostages. There are still, I believe, 48 being held by Hamas, which, when you think about it, this was nearly 2 years ago that they've been living in what has to be the worst possible hell anyone can imagine. And until Hamas releases those hostages, from President Trump's point of view, there is no negotiation. There is no peace. And Netanyahu has obviously been very steadfast about that as well. The problem is Hamas knows that if they release these hostages, the remaining ones, they're dead. So this is their last bargaining chip, and they're going to hold on to it for as long as they can.
A slight change of topic, but while I've got you in news out of New York in the last hour, Jimmy Kimmel has been uncancelled. He has risen Lazarus-like to the ABC late-night roster. Turns out Donald Trump's not a fascist authoritarian censor after all. What's happening?
Well, the free market, I guess, kind of. I mean, here, Jimmy Kimmel, you know, I guess ABC and Disney caved, and all these actors and producers were threatening not to work for the company unless Kimmel was reinstated. So I guess Bob Iger and Disney heard that, and he's going to be reinstated tomorrow night. But this still does not change the fundamentals of this, which is Jimmy Kimmel, in terms of supply and demand. Let's put it this way. The supply is toxic. It's hateful. It's a complete and total echo chamber. Let's put it this way, Harry. He's had one conservative on his show in the past 3 years.
Wow.
And that person was only invited on so Kimmel could mock him for being unvaccinated. Overall, the first 8 months of this year alone, Kimmel was told, you're going to love this number, 1,128 jokes about Trump or conservatives and 26 about Democrats. I mean, I'm just spitballing here, but that's pretty one-sided and pretty predictable. And then you look at demand. Kimmel was a distant third in a 4-horse race in late night. Greg Gutfeld of my network, despite having infinitely less writers and resources, production budget, more than doubled his viewership. So, yeah. Kimmel's getting paid $16 million a year to lose tens of millions of dollars for his company. None of that changes. So Disney had a nice out here to save themselves some credibility and some money. But I guess they cave when they figured that they're going to lose other people that wouldn't want to work for the network anymore, and that's where we're at.
What is the lovely army that rode to his support saying tonight, given that Disney have clearly said the reason he was suspended was because he factually smeared MAGA supporters as saying that the killer was one of their own. They've admitted that tonight. Presumably that's just going to go down the memory hole.
Yeah, I suppose so. Unless Jimmy Kimmel does the right thing, and tomorrow night, the first thing he should say is, I apologize to Erica Kirk. I apologize to Turning Point USA. My wife keeps calling me. Sorry about this. And overall, 60 affiliates told ABC and Disney they didn't want to carry the show anymore. So, and you know he's going to say something completely unhinged, unprofessional, insensitive, probably within 48 hours. And that's going to get people angry again. That's just Jimmy Kimmel's DNA. But, I mean, I just find it incredible that more liberals here and more in our media are far more upset that Jimmy Kimmel lost his show for a couple of days than Charlie Kirk losing his life.
You couldn't have put it better myself. I'll let you take your wife's call there, Joe. Thanks for joining us. Still ahead tonight, as we're discussing there, the world mourned Conservative Charlie Kirk last night. I'll be joined by a special guest to reflect on those extraordinary scenes out of Arizona that we saw and ask what's next. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Harry Cole Saves the West. Charlie Kirk's memorial last night wasn't just a funeral, it was a 120,000-strong rallying cry watched by hundreds of millions around the world. Charlie's widow, Erica, looked evil in the eye and said this.
That man, that young man, I forgive him.
A remarkable speech by a remarkable woman. President Trump, however, didn't agree.
He did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent.
And Jack Posobiec, who was very recently on this very show, he declared,
when they write of the 2 or 3 pivotal moments that led to the saving of Western civilization, they will write that the sacrifice of Charles James Kirk was the turning point.
These weren't so much eulogies, but battle cries. The message was very clear. The left may take down one man, but they cannot kill ideas. Now, joining me now is Blake Marnell, or as you might know him, Brick Soup Man, one of Donald Trump's most loyal fans, a supporter and a regular rally attendee. Blake, you've seen many of these Donald Trump speeches, many of these gatherings, but nothing quite like that, right?
Absolutely. There has been nothing in my experience that was like last night. It was not a political rally, despite the fact that there were many political figures there. This was more than, I mean, it was a memorial for Charlie Kirk. And it's just a testimony to how much he's contributed to American politics that there were so many members of the administration there, but not a political rally.
Not a political rally, but a moment for the movement that has grown up around Donald Trump. Was this the moment that actually MAGA became bigger than any one person?
I don't know if it's possible to say that now, but certainly what Jack Posobiec said about people stepping up and carrying Charlie's legacy forward is true. We may not have one individual, and honestly, we cannot have one individual who can take Charlie's place, but there will be many people who will be redoubling their efforts in American politics because of Charlie's sacrifice.
We saw that extraordinary moment from Erica, where Erica Kirk, where she said, "I forgive his killer." How did that feel? How did that land in the stadium?
Well, Erica's voice dropped. She was, as we just saw in the clip, she was speaking very softly, and then the audience got quiet, and then they're, oh my God, what a just.
Oh, we lost you there for a second. We'll let you, we'll let Brick Soup Man hopefully return. We'll come back to Brick Soup Man, hopefully. We've got Monica Paige, though, White House correspondent for Turning Point USA and star, actually, of today's press briefing at the White House. A touching tribute there, I think, from Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt to give Turning Point, Charlie Kirk's organisation, the top billing. Monica, talk me through the last 24 hours. It must have been extraordinary for you that worked so closely with Charlie, knew him so well, but also saw how many millions of others were ready to sort of sign up to the cause.
Well, Harry, it's so great to talk to you, and I really appreciate you having me on and having this segment in the show. Absolutely. It's been a very busy 24 hours. I mean, emotions are all over the place, between feeling absolute shock. I mean, I'm still in shock. I can't believe I'm sitting here talking about this right now, to, feeling like I want to burst into tears. I feel angry, and I am just so... I don't even know what the word is to describe Erica, her poise, her strength on full display at this rally and memorial service yesterday. Seeing her say, "I forgive my husband's killer," I don't think I could ever utter those words if I were in her shoes. But to sit there and listen to the stories that not only Caroline Leavitt shared with me, but also the people that have been following Charlie and their personal stories about him, they're very touching, they're very moving, and I'm so excited to see the direction of our organization go, because it's only going to get bigger, and we just saw that over the weekend.
So, Erica Kirk, we were discussing with Blake there before. I think he dropped his phone, frankly. Look, that moment in the arena where she said she forgave the killer. Talk me through how that felt, and what was the reaction of the crowd, and then. Obviously, the president later on said he was not as good a man as possibly Charlie was, or not as good as man as Erica, or as good a person as Erica is, because he can't forgive. Is that the inherent tension at the heart of all this? Is that there is still boiling and righteous anger, but also is it time to forgive?
It's such an interesting dichotomy, because when Erica Kirk said that, we all kind of looked at each other like, wow, did she really just say that? Our jaws were on the floor, because that takes a certain type of strength. That takes a certain type of I don't know, faith in God that you could be instilled with this kind of forgiveness, but she worded it perfectly. She said that this is what Charlie would have wanted, and this is what the Bible and our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ teaches us: to forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. So it's so important for us to understand that forgiveness is everything as we move forward, but don't forget what had happened in this movement. Don't forget what had happened. That's what Trump has said when he made his remarks. But, you know, it's so interesting because emotions are all over the place right now, but the only thing that we can do right now is move forward. And that is exactly what we plan to do. We plan to move forward with strength and, you know, and just see where this goes. And Erica is the perfect person to lead us in that direction.
So Erica has taken over as CEO and chair of Turning Point UK. There was a feeling that this wasn't so much as a memorial, but of revival. On that faith point, is this, you know, we're seeing Donald Trump talk more and more about his faith post-Butler last year. You had Elon Musk, of all people, tweeting the Lord's Prayer today. Do you detect this as a turning point in faith or turning point in broader conservatism, or where do you see it? Is this going to be a moment where religion and politics becomes much more of a talking point?
Well, we've definitely had our sect in religion. We have our TPUSA faith, and I definitely can see them getting more involved with what we're doing now. As for Turning Point USA as a whole, we are definitely going to be continuing our college campuses tour and doing the debates and doing the discussion and the dialogue. We actually just released our full roster today, where we're going to have a star-studded lineup on college campuses. You've got Megyn Kelly, Governor Glenn Youngkin of Virginia. You've got plenty of people who want to step up to the microphone, who want to step up to the plate and just, you know, do and carry out our mission, essentially. So I can definitely see the intersecting happening. At our core, that is what Turning Point USA is all about. And I think that we're going to be seeing much more of that as the years progress. So
the verbal fight continues, the tours continue, presumably under a much higher level, sadly, of security than they were. Talk us through how that's going to work. So the Charlie's university campus set up, the microphone, prove me wrong, come talk to me. That model is, you know, that's not being retired.
Well, it's going to be interesting. I don't know how it's going to physically look, but I do know that we are still going to college campuses and speaking to these students. As you just saw at Colorado State University just last week, 10,000 people still showed up to the event that Charlie was supposed to be at, but it ended up being his vigil instead. So we will definitely see more of that. We can definitely expect large crowds. Quite honestly, I mean, being a former college student myself, I'm surprised at the lack of security. Even when I was just a student on college campuses, anybody could just drive up and drive onto campus. And that always kind of freaked me out in general. So the fact that Charlie was there and having such a big presence and being such a big name, I'm a little disappointed with the fact that there wasn't enough security, bolstered security there. But I definitely think that this is a lesson learned, and I'm hoping that the proper steps are being taken so nothing like this could ever happen again. Because President Trump said the gun was pointed at Charlie, but it could have been any one of us. It could have been any of those students there.
Absolutely. And we saw the reaction to the horrific scenes from some people. You're not only no longer a college student now, you are a top White House correspondent, as we saw today at the press briefing. Let's talk about what the reaction to from the government you expect to be. Donald Trump talking about dismantling left-wing extremism, targeting Antifa. Talk us through how that's shaping up. Where are we at with that?
Well, the president's designating Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization, rightly so. I mean, I think this is something that should have been coming a long time ago. I mean, you've even seen the protests coming out of Portland and Seattle and Los Angeles with those ICE raids and seeing the protesters, you know, spitting in the faces of our law enforcement and, you know, spitting in the faces of law and order in general. So this is a great step forward towards actually having change in our country. And the press secretary was able to list out all the instances where these radical left-wing Antifa groups were causing chaos in our country. So I'm very excited to see what the president does. What I do think is that we need to stop funding these NGOs, because if you got to always follow the money. How the heck are these Antifa people getting these weapons, getting the garb that we're seeing, getting the face masks and the everything that you see, the tactical gear, they're all being funded by somebody. So getting to the root of that, cutting off that funding is definitely going to be essential in tracking down who is behind these groups and how we can, prohibit this kind of action moving forward, and we can eviscerate this kind of violence.
Let's have a little look, listen to the president, what exactly he said yesterday. We'll return to that exact point. Have a listen to this.
He did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent, and I don't want the best for them. I'm sorry. I am sorry, Erica. But now Erica can talk to me and the whole group, and maybe they can convince me that that's not right, but I can't stand my opponent. Charlie's angry. Looking down, he's angry at me now.
That's the president that's now, I mean, you can look at that one of two ways, right? As we discussed earlier, he's a man saying, I'm not as good a man as Charlie, I'm not as good a person as Erica. But he is clearly going to use this moment to take the fight to the left, is he not?
Yeah, I mean, the fight continues, and the fight is going to be harder than ever. And what's so powerful about Charlie is that he was willing to debate anybody, wherever, who, no matter what you look like, no matter where you come from. That was his thing, and that is what he encouraged everybody to do. And he spoke to people so patiently and so respectfully. He wanted to learn about why people feel the way that they do, and hopefully he could have made a change, because that's, it's so upsetting that somebody who just wanted to have open debate and discussion and dialogue was killed with a microphone in his hand. And he wanted the world to be a better place. He wanted, when you stop the dialogue, the violence begins. And that's exactly what Charlie said. And, when President Trump says, I hate my enemy, I hate my opponent. Well, I don't take it that seriously. I know people on the left might take it seriously, but that's the thing about dialogue. He says that he hopes that maybe Erica could change his mind and that he doesn't have to feel that way. Because I think, we're all faulty people. We're all sinners in some way. And forgiveness is a very hard thing, especially when you don't have an apology or you don't see the person face to face. I mean, this whole, I forgive my husband's killer, that's, made me think a little bit about my decisions and about forgiveness. And maybe I shouldn't hold on to grudges. Maybe I should, do I need an apology in order to forgive? These are all questions that, maybe are opening people's eyes, and it's very inspiring.
It's not just, it's talking of holding grudges. The media reaction to Charlie's death, and even the media reaction to his funeral last night, has been obviously deeply polarised. The BBC in Britain described it as a far-right gathering. What's your response to that?
I just think it's ridiculous. These are people that are constantly finding politics in everything. And what's interesting is that Charlie was not far right. Charlie was more moderate right. He was the moderate one. It's funny, in one of his interviews that he does with his wife, Erica, there's a Q&A portion of the podcast, and the question is, who's more conservative? And he says, my wife, by a long shot. She makes me look like a moderate. So moving forward, I think people made a huge mistake in, trying to take out the one who just wanted to have dialogue and try to bridge that gap between Republicans and Democrats. He was the one that could do it. I don't see anybody on the left doing what Charlie did or looking to make a change the way Charlie did. I mean, it's going to be a tough way to move forward, but we're definitely we got to keep doing what we're doing, and we're going to keep up the Lord's work.
Keep one more. Just one more question. Jimmy Kimmel, obviously breaking news story tonight. Back on the air, obviously taken off the air, and now ABC admits was because he besmirched Charlie's death. He said he spoke a mistruth in the fact that he tried to claim the killer as one of MAGA's. What's your response? Is there redemption for Jimmy Kimmel? Will an apology suffice? Or would you like to see Disney stick to their guns?
Well, essentially, Disney can throw their money at Jimmy Kimmel all they want. It'll just be a waste of money. And I predict that Jimmy will just stick around until his contract is terminated or it's up. And, Jimmy Kimmel and all these other talk shows, they know that their ratings are in the tank, and they're trying to find some kind of way to stay relevant. And this wasn't just misspeak, this was an outright lie, because I personally misspoken before, and then I have to issue a retraction. That's people make mistakes, nobody's perfect. But this is different, and I don't know if it's a little too late for an apology. I mean, I would accept an apology. I don't know if many other people would. But I think this is very telling of his future, and I don't know how much of a future he really has left, especially after this. I mean, he's run on Trump derangement syndrome for decades, and now he wants to, say these kinds of things. I don't see a very positive future for Jimmy Kimmel.
Well, looking at the polls, it doesn't look like his side doing his side much good either. Monica Paige from Turning Point UK, thank you for joining us. I know it's been a moving time, a terrible week for you guys, but some hope there. Thank you for coming. Come back and see us soon, yeah?
Thank you so much, Harry. I appreciate it.
Not at all. After the break, we'll be back on those files, the Epstein files. He's back, and he's got another scalp. Don't go away. Welcome back to Harry Cole Saves the West. Now, the royal soap opera meets the Epstein files. Joining us live in the studio, Matt Wilkinson, royal editor of The Sun. And from sunny California, Kinsey Schofield, for all the latest with Epstein. Matt, I'm going to start with you. Could you just run us through the latest developments, the latest scalp from Epstein that appears to be Sarah Ferguson?
Yeah, look, Harry, Jeffrey Epstein is continuing to haunt the royal family from beyond the grave, and this time it's Sarah Ferguson. This isn't necessarily, parts of this aren't necessarily new, because we know back in 2011, Sarah Ferguson took a £15,000 loan from Jeffrey Epstein, which he owned up to and apologised. But what we had on the front page of The Sun this weekend is that actually she has sent emails to Jeffrey Epstein afterwards, after she'd actually paid this loan and been caught out paying this loan, in which she called him a supreme friend and apologised in an earlier interview for calling him a paedophile. There are mitigating factors here. Sarah says that she felt, or sources close to Sarah, I must point out.
Good caveat there, good save.
Said that she felt under threat. I mean, look, Jeffrey Epstein was allegedly sending some pretty strong threats, legal letters, talking about defamation for this interview that she had said, where she called him a paedophile. And, yeah, I mean, he is a nasty man. Although Sarah is a scalp, although she has owned up to this, and although she has been caught out with this email, let's not forget that he was a horrible, horrible man, Jeffrey Epstein.
Matt, how damaging is it to the wider royal family? Obviously, Sarah Ferguson has been somewhat of a fringe figure over the years. Ever since she was sort of caught sucking toes, she's been sort of very much out of the royal fold. Andrew, obviously, in disgrace, sitting in Windsor, sulking, not involved in the state visit last week, not involved in any official capacity, not a working royal. How much contagion, how much contamination on this story, though, is there for the king? Is there for the House of Windsor?
Well, first of all, it's another hole in the head for the king, but I don't think it's actually infected the royal family yet. I think this is restricted just to Sarah Ferguson, and it's very damaging to her, because we've already seen charities walk away, some of them cancer charities, which, Sarah has gone through 2 cancer struggles recently, and these are charities that she's worked so hard with, but also it could affect her financially, and that's when it's going to be a worry for the king. Because if she loses work, if she loses book deals because of this scandal, or funders and backers and people want to pay for her work walk away, that's when it's going to cause a problem, because money has often been the Achilles heel for both Andrew and Sarah Ferguson. I think that's why the king will be worried. Which
presumably is why she got into a relationship and get so close into this mess with Epstein in the first place. Kinsey, Epstein's been dead for years, and each week he seems to come back to haunt a president, an ambassador, a prince. Who's next?
Well, let's hope it's no one in our cell phones or anybody that we're associated with. Prince Andrew's ties to Epstein already represent one of the monarchy's greatest reputational meltdowns in recent memory. Fergie's involvement keeps the Epstein connection alive in headlines, making it harder for the family to distance itself from this very damaging chapter. And even though Fergie's no longer married to Prince Andrew, she still carries the Duchess of York title, lives with him, attends royal events with or without him, and remains connected through her children, Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie. That means, in my personal opinion, that her actions reflect, however indirectly, on the institution itself and can overshadow the royal family's attempts to survive. I mean, based on recent polling through August and September, public support for the British monarchy is at historic lows, especially among young people. These scandals threaten the royal family's credibility and authority.
6 charities have cut ties with Sarah Ferguson in the last, 12 hours or so, I'd say. Presumably that's just the beginning of her woes. What do you think happens to her next?
I mean, Meghan Markle and Sarah Ferguson are completely unpredictable, if you ask me. I don't even pretend to be psychic in that world. Can she survive this? I don't think so. I think Epstein is just such a scoundrel, and I just think that you don't want any association whatsoever. And here in the States, the Daily Beast is reporting that it was more than 15 million pounds, that it was potentially, or 15,000 pounds, that it was potentially 2 million pounds. That's Tom Sykes with the Daily Beast reporting that yesterday.
And Kinsey, I mean, you're talking in millions of pounds. You've got Jim Comey's investigation in Congress. You've got someone who has clearly hacked some emails or has been passed these emails that are being whipped around and circulated around the world. Isn't it time for, I don't know, everyone to sort of come clean now? I mean, this drip, 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 drip nature of these problems with Epstein it's not the way to handle it, is it? Is it not time to just sort of people to be completely open? Would you like to see Sarah Ferguson, Prince Andrew, President Trump, various others come forward and publish these documents?
Are you talking to Pam Bondi right now? Is this message for Pam?
You know, Pam, I know, is a regular viewer. So, Pam, you said they were on her desk, right? Publish them.
Exactly. I mean, I do think that it jeopardizes the credibility of the Trump administration, too, to have so many high-profile individuals working within the administration saying, just you wait, we're about to release it. You're not going to believe what we have access to. You're not going to believe what we've seen. And then suddenly go, oh, no, it's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. There's nothing there. There are a lot of questions that still surround whatever lists exist, whatever information, what tapes exist. But, you know, we were told at some point in time that there were security tapes that existed that might have caught some very important people in some uncomfortable positions. So absolutely, I mean, release it all. We're curious to know.
Matt, Jim Comey was on this show last Monday. He's leading the charge in Congress on the Epstein files. He says if there are files in there about Andrew, he will publish them. Might not be this tranche or the next tranche, but if he finds them, they will be coming out. How worried is Buckingham Palace about what could potentially be in there? Do they even know? Has Andrew, if he hasn't cleared the decks publicly, has he privately admitted to what could still be to come? They must know about his, the full extent of his business connections, personal connections, or, as we're hearing tonight, other connections possible between his wife and himself with Epstein.
I wonder about what actual resources and tools the king has to punish Andrew. He's stripped all his money off him. He's not allowed to be that the Queen, summoned him to Windsor Castle and stripped all his duties. There are these family events that Andrew turns up on, and they're getting more and more embarrassing the more that, as you just pointed out there, that there could be more files that are coming out. And that's all that the king has left. He doesn't actually own Royal Lodge. Royal Lodge is a Crown Estate property, and as long as Andrew can actually fund his life, which he is actually doing at the moment, then he can stay there. So if the king wants to punish him, what does he actually have left? He is his brother. We saw him, I was there the other day, and we saw Andrew actually turn up. He looked very odd. He was hanging around outside the funeral of the Duchess of Kent. He was standing next to William, trying to chat next to William. And that's the only tool, the only resource, the only punishment that the king has left now for Andrew is to stop him turning up to family events. He's done everything he possibly can to get rid of him.
He was there, sort of nudging his way in, trying to get into all the photos, always cracking jokes at a funeral. Kinsey, the guy's a liability, right? Surely it's time that he goes the way of previous errant princes and is banished from the land.
I agree, but I also agree with Matt. I mean, anything that the royal family does to punish him, for example, stripping him of his Duke of York title. Now we have to introduce Parliament for something like that. Now you're magnifying this problem. You're elevating this problem. It's going to be on the front of all the newspapers, and it's going to be something we're constantly talking about. So it's that never complain, never explain. Maybe the guy will just go away. Unfortunately, he just doesn't. And I wish that I had a solution. He does try to keep his head down for the most part, but when he shows up somewhere, it is like a bull in a china shop.
Matt, we've seen previous monarchs genuinely, I'm asking you a serious question on this one, though, genuinely banished from the land. The Duke of Windsor, was sent away after he abdicated, ended up in the Bahamas. Could we see, is there a world in which we could see generally Prince Andrew drummed out of polite society, drummed out the country?
Well, he's such an arrogant man. I mean, he probably thinks he can turn it around. That's the issue. Is I don't think Andrew's ever really faced up to what the damage that he has caused. I know we did the Newsnight interview, and I know he's shown some kind of contrition, but in statements. But I don't actually think he actually thinks he has done this huge amount of damage to the royal family. I don't think he's aware of it. The best thing to do is what Kinsey just pointed out there. He needs to leave the country. I think he's got friends maybe in the Far East and the Middle East, and I think it would be wonderful for everybody. Especially when the king is going through cancer at the moment. He's having a really rough time. I think he's doing a fantastic job. He's got this whole Harry roadshow reunion coming down the road. If the best thing to do would be Andrew to just go away to the Middle East and hang out with some friends there.
Kinsey, we're talking about Prince Harry. He's obviously sort of being banished, but we're hearing, we'll get a question for you both on this one. We're hearing sort of talk of a reconciliation. There was that meeting less than an hour long, but a meeting nonetheless with the King in London last week. Is California bored of Prince Harry, and is Prince Harry bored of California?
I think we were bored of Prince Harry a long time ago. I mean,
well, how do you think we feel?
Over the weekend, we had to deal with him in a Disney special, talking about how much he loves Space Mountain. So that's the amount of his contributions here in the United States. I don't buy these royal reunions. In Us Weekly magazine last week, they talked about how Prince Harry and the King embraced, and there were tears. They just missed each other so much. I think this is Team Harry, because Harry does miss the UK, and he misses having a purpose. But I don't believe the reports that we are, that a royal reunion's on the horizon, and Prince Harry's coming back stronger than ever to help his brother Prince William carry some of the workload. I think that's silly Sussex PR stuff.
Do you think that's wishful thinking coming right out of Harry's camp himself, or do you think he's just sort of testing the water, floating ideas? Where's this coming from?
I think that it's wishful thinking. I think that they think if they say it, maybe it could come to fruition. I'm curious to see what Matt says.
Matt, the King has been pretty clear. William has been pretty clear. He cannot be a half-in, half-out royal. There is no path back for Harry, really, is there? There is no path back for Andrew.
No, not for either. I mean, I think the thing with Harry, what Kinsey's pointing out there, I think there's a lot of Sussex PR kind of flying the flag and just seeing what the public reaction is. And I think his visit the other week, he kind of pretended to be a royal. It was disguised as a royal tour. And I think there was huge public apathy. I don't think there is an appetite in the UK for him to come back. And I think the royal family were waiting for that tour to just see exactly how the public reacted to see him walking around, going to certain events. And I think the public has said, no, we don't want you back. And I think the royal family won't take him back. I question whether Harry really does actually want to come back. I think that he has to maintain some kind of royal connection, maintain this facade that he's actually close to the King, so that when he signs or when he appears in big Netflix deals or any Netflix shows, they can say that he's still close to the King. But I don't buy it. Surely
the King must see through that, though. He can't really enjoy being a bargaining chip for a Montecito podcast deal.
Yeah. Well, what did he get? He got... he was squeezed in the middle of some other audiences. The King had met like the Premier of South Australia, and then he'd handed out a reward to a Holocaust survivor. He was one of the shortest audiences that he had in that trip. If Harry genuinely wanted a reunion with his family, he would have come to Balmoral over the summer. There was 5 or 6 weeks when the King was there, and he could have spent a couple of days chatting to the King. It was just all for show.
Kinsey, you agree? Final thought, 2 seconds. Who will we see back first, Andrew or Harry?
Oh, no, nobody, nobody. Nobody has the ability that Queen Camilla's had to change that public perception.
Hold that thought. This was Harry Cole Saves the West. Good night.